Well, welcome. Again, welcome to Providence College. My name is Therese Riley. I work in the Office of Institutional Advancement. I'm a proud alumna of the class of 1983, but I'm a prouder parent I have a son who is in the class of 19, a junior here, and a daughter who is a sophomore here. So welcome to both parents and students. You all made a great choice. Today we're going to be, in a few moments, you're going to hear from Grace Cleary. We're going to be talking a little bit about the study abroad program, and Grace and a few students are going to talk about Study Abroad 101. Couple of points with that. You know, you're all very lucky because when I was a student at PC, if your financial aid was not considered portable, so that it was a different cost, and you'd have to go above and beyond. But now, through generosity of our benefactors, that's something that you can take advantage of. And there's so many different things, and they're going to talk a lot about the various options, so that it truly is affordable to be able to take advantage of the wonderful experience of the global classroom. Grace, as I mentioned, is Assistant Dean of International Studies, and we also have 3 study abroad alumni. Let's see, we've got Madeline Klim, and then Benjamin Tyler, and then Kendall O'Neill. So you'll hear from all of them. We're also going to, I mentioned before, we have some people in overflow. If folks are still out there and you want to ask a question toward the end of the presentation, you can come in here and use the microphone. That's actually helpful. One last comment I'm going to make is we have some of these flyers. I don't know if you may have received them when you checked in, but what's kind of interesting about this is it does go through some of I had mentioned I'm in institutional advancement, and for those who don't know, we just wrapped up a really great, successful capital campaign. We were hoping to raise $140 million, and we raised $185 million. And you can see that in this gorgeous campus, but some of the other things that we were able to accomplish was some great programs that benefactors, including some really cool things for study and service abroad. So information on those are here, as well as contact information. I'll leave it here if anyone has an interest in picking up on the way out. But with that, I'd like to give a warm welcome to Grace Cleary.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Study Abroad info session. My name is Grace Cleary. I'm curious, how many of you are going abroad next semester? Is there anyone here who's in the junior class? Okay. And how many of you are thinking about going abroad later on? All right, great. How many of you are thinking Europe? Anyone thinking Australia? Asia? Africa? Maybe? All right, cool. Well, I'm going to talk a lot about the different program opportunities that we have today, and then give you a chance to hear from some of the students so that they can tell you a little bit about what their study abroad experience looked like, and then open it up for questions. So the first thing about study abroad is that it's an academic endeavor. So what we mean by that is that we want it to be something that complements and enhances students' academic experience at Providence College. We want students to be able to learn things about their major field of study that they wouldn't be able to learn on the home campus. So sometimes that could be taking an international finance class in London and being able to see how that operates, doing company visits abroad. Other times that might be doing a research project on African elephant habits at a game reserve in South Africa. So we've seen students do all different kinds of things with their study abroad that help them to gain something new and to understand their major in a different way. So our office has a few different pedagogical goals. We're in the Office of Academic Affairs, and so part of what we're trying to do is curricular integration. So what that means is that when students study abroad, we want to make sure they're continuing to make progress towards their degree. So one of the things that we do for that is to help students figure out which classes they can take while they're abroad and how those are going to fulfill all the major, minor, and core requirements that students have at Providence College. We also think it's really important to have a diverse array of program offerings geographically. So a lot of students at Providence College go to Europe, but we do have students who, just because of personal interests, career interests, or academics, want to go somewhere different. So we have programs all over the world on many different continents. And we also have different kinds of programs. So some students might want to do an internship when they're studying abroad. Other students might want to focus on academics. Other students want to do service learning or something like that to get them outside of the classroom a little bit while they're studying abroad. And we have programs that do all of those things. And finally, career integration and development is really important. It's something that we start talking about early on in the study abroad process. What are your goals for your career, and how can we find you a program that will help you to get to where you want to be? Sometimes that's through an internship, sometimes it's through coursework, coursework. But that's something that we start before students go abroad, and we continue the conversation when they return, including doing workshops on career integration to help students articulate what the skills were that they developed while they were abroad and how they can utilize those when they're interviewing for jobs and internships later on. So in our office, we have 4 full-time staff. We do study abroad, but we also do a lot of on-campus internationalization efforts because we're hoping that students will be thinking about internationalization throughout their whole 4 years at PC. So we help with faculty-led programs. We do things like the Study Abroad Fair. We have info sessions. We bring in guest speakers. So we're hoping that students have study abroad on their mind, from early on, but even if they don't choose to study abroad, that they're still able to gain a kind of international understanding while on campus. So one of the things that we do to help make study abroad a healthier and safer thing for students is working with third-party program providers. So, we have our offices here in the US, but we can't be in every single country where all of our students are. So we work with some really great third-party providers, which are sort of like mini campuses abroad. They are available 24/7. They have staff available to help students with anything that comes up. If a student sprains their wrist and needs to go to the hospital, somebody's going to be there 24/7 to take them, help them navigate the paperwork, help them with any translation issues, everything like that. If there's some kind of an emergency, they're going to be texting with students right away to make sure that everything is under control and that students are accounted for. They provide orientation for students so that when they arrive in country, they have an idea of what to expect, what some of the cultural differences are, just sort of a mini crash course in everything you'd need to know about being in London over a few days. And they also help with things like obtaining a visa, if that's going to be necessary for your semester abroad. And also, some of them plan excursions, 3-day weekend trips. Some of them pick students up from the airport. They find the housing that students live in and basically help them with anything that can come up along the way while they're in country. So we have 350 programs, and which seems like quite a lot, but we also have sort of some lists that are more directly correlated with particular majors.
I'm just going to do this because people are in the other room.
Oh, sure. Thanks. So for instance, for the business students, we have a list of about 60 programs that are going to be very focused on business schools, business courses that students can take, and things like that. So a big part of our advising is based on students' major field of study, and the programs that we approve are related to that. So we have different options for study abroad. So a lot of students at PC, the majority, do semester study abroad. So that takes place during junior year. Those programs would replace a full either fall or spring semester, and we sometimes have students who do a full year abroad. Students can also do a short-term program at any point in time during their 4 years at PC. So if a freshman is really interested in studying abroad this summer after freshman year, that's something that they have the option to do. And those programs are typically between 3 and 12 weeks. We also have faculty-led programs, so Providence College faculty taking students abroad, usually for a shorter duration, something like 1 week or 2 weeks, either during spring break or right after classes end. So as I said, semester study abroad students are eligible to go abroad their junior year. They need to have completed Civ. They need to have declared a major, and there's a cumulative GPA requirement of 2.75. There's also a disciplinary review process, and the student needs to be sure that there are no financial holds on their record at the time. For summer, again, that's any time after freshman year. There's no GPA or major declaration process, and again, there is a disciplinary review process and a financial review as well. So one of the big differences between semester study abroad and summer study abroad is the cost of the programs. So with semester study abroad, we have what's called homeschool tuition. So with homeschool tuition, you continue to pay your typical PC tuition with any grants, scholarships, or loans deducted. There are two exceptions, and that's work study, because you're not able to work abroad, so you wouldn't be able to take advantage of that award, and also Division I athletic scholarships, since there's an on-campus requirement for that. But other than that, the grants and scholarships will be deducted as usual, and there will be a $1,000 study abroad fee. So it makes it pretty easy to plan out the budgeting for semester study abroad, because for the most part, the costs are going to be very similar to being on campus for a semester. Housing does not get paid to Providence College since you'll be living abroad. So in that case, you would pay the housing to the study abroad provider. And some additional fees that you would want to keep in mind would be airfare and visas. So just to give you an example of a student who studied abroad for a semester, we have a program in Rome called PC in Rome, and it's a very popular program with our students. So this program we send about 40 to 50 students a semester on, and the students are living in Rome and taking classes that will get them credit towards their PC major and minor requirements. And this student says, "My professors were Italian and opened my eyes by taking us on site visits to different museums, gardens, and restaurants. Because of my Italian professors, I began to do as the Romans do by drinking a cappuccino every morning, crossing the street with confidence, and getting by using basic Italian." So this is a great example of a student who's gone abroad and is starting to integrate some of her experiences into her daily life. So here she is at the Trevi Fountain. So for the Rome program, just to give you an example of what the curricular integration looks like, a student on the Rome program would take a course like New Testament and the Eternal City. This is a PC theology requirement. So as most of you probably know by now, there are 2 required theology courses, and this would fulfill one of them. So with the New Testament course, it's kind of great because students meet every class is on site. So they meet every day at a different museum or church in Rome, and then are learning about theology from their professor who's taking them around and showing them all these different sites. Another example of this class that the student might take in Rome would be photography, which would fulfill the Providence College Fine Arts requirement. Environmental ethics would fulfill the ethics requirement, and then managing global supply chains would be a business major course that a student could take. And then comparative politics would be an example of a poli-sci major elective. So a program like Rome would have about 20 to 30 courses during the semester, and each of those courses would be articulated in advance so that students would understand what requirements those were fulfilling for their major or minor or core. If a student wanted to do something a little different, we have a program in Shanghai, and they would be able to take things like Intro to Chinese Philosophy to count as their philosophy requirement, Eastern Theater to fulfill their fine arts. They could take a couple of classes for their major requirements, and if they wanted to, they could do Chinese as their core focus. So there's clearly lots of different ways that you can make study abroad work and make sure that you're still making progress towards those degree requirements while you're there. Okay, so just going back to the costs, I wanted to touch on a couple of scholarships that are available. So one of them is listed in the handout that Teresa was referring to before, and that's called the Santander Scholarship. So this is a scholarship for students on semester and short-term study abroad, and it's to help underrepresented students study abroad. So that could be students with high financial need, students from underrepresented backgrounds, and students who are underrepresented in other ways, for instance, having a learning disability or a physical disability. So anyone who is studying abroad in lower numbers. We also have a a couple of scholarships through the Department of State for students who are, one of them is for students who are interested in going to sort of less traditional program locations outside of Western Europe. And then many of the providers have scholarships as well. So the third-party providers are those organizations that are providing the help on the ground. Some of those are financial needs-based and others are merit-based. So that's definitely something our office can help out with as students are thinking about studying abroad. So when students study abroad, they have a variety of different housing options, and some of our students are going to touch on those in a few minutes. But basically, in general, it's homestays, so a student living with a local family, student apartments, so students just living in a typical apartment building with anywhere between 2 to 5 other students, sometimes from the host country, sometimes from the United States. And then there's also traditional dorms, kind of like we have here at PC. So here's an example of a student who is in Denmark. She lived in what's called a folk school, so it was sort of an arrangement where there was like a big common area, a big kitchen that students could help cook together, and then dorm rooms off of that. So this one was a little bit, she was in Copenhagen, but it was just a little bit outside of the city, so it gave her a chance to see a different side of Copenhagen. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Madeline to tell us a little bit about her study abroad experience and her housing and everything else in Seville.
Hi everyone, I'm Madeline Klim. I'm a marketing and Spanish double major, and I studied abroad in Seville, Spain. And a little bit about my experience. I was in a homestay. So here's a picture of my neighborhood. It was about 20 minutes outside the city center, and I lived with a host mom and her 2 sons, and I was provided 3 meals a day. We ate every meal together. Basically, we just shoot her a text, hey, Isa, I'm not coming home for dinner, or like, can I have lunch at noon, stuff like that. But she was super accommodating, and here is a picture of my room. Sorry, my bed's not made, but that honestly, I think that was like the day I moved in. But basically, you can see I had my own room. The bed was if like another student was there, if we had decided to do 2 people in our homestay. But she made my bed every morning, did my laundry, like unreal. Like I don't get that at home. So coming home was a little bit of a eye opener when my mom said, "Oh, Madeline, I'm not separating your whites and darks." Literally had baskets, but. Basically, that was a really big highlight of my study abroad experience. My family came over, and we all, my real family, we all had dinner together in the host family, and she didn't speak any English, so at that dinner, I was translating back and forth between the 2, my parents and Isabel. And just to give you more of like a location perception, this is the main part of Sevilla, Plaza de España. So this was about 10 minutes from my house, so Sevilla's pretty small, so it was easy to get back and forth to the bigger like places of Sevilla. And just a little bit about travel. I was able to travel with my PC friends, and also that's a picture of my study abroad, some of my friends from my program. So that picture is actually from a trip to Morocco that my CIEE, Business and Society. That was the program I did, so that was a trip included in our like time there. And there you can see a picture, that's in Amsterdam, that was with my friends from Providence College. And just a little bit about the culture in Sevilla. When I was there, Easter is a really, really big holiday. It's a whole week, it's called Semana Santa, and there's these big floats. I actually don't have pictures of those, but a whole week devoted to Easter and all celebrations. And then these are pictures from Feria de Abril. So that is like a big cultural like coming together of Sevilla, celebrating the history of their culture. And if you can see those little hut things, those are called casetas. And like basically a family will rent one out, buy one, and they're very exclusive, like they are handed down generation to generation. And this is the traditional feria wear. I actually didn't have a dress, but they're long, like flapper like dresses, and you wear the flower in your hair. And then here's just a big picture of the celebration. That was actually from a Ferris wheel. If you go to Sevilla, don't go on the Ferris wheel. It literally went so fast. We were so scared, but got a really cool picture out of it. Ate some really good food, and basically, study abroad was one of the coolest, best experiences of my life. I met some really cool friends who I actually just saw a few weeks ago. I went out to Wisconsin to visit them. So I still keep in touch with my host mom. So it just really changed a lot of things about me and opened my eyes to a whole different perspective.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ben Tyler. I studied abroad in Dublin, Ireland, and I did an internship at the Irish Parliament. And the name of the program is Dublin Parliamentary Internship. So, the Irish Parliament, the Irish name is the Oireachtas. So, I was interning there for two TDs who are akin to House members in the United States Congress. In the lower house of the parliament, which is called the Dáil. I was there 2.5 days a week for my spring semester, so from January to mid-April. Um, and the way I did it was, since I was with two, I was with Tuesdays with one of my representatives, Thursdays with the other, and then Wednesday afternoon I would switch off every week between their offices. So just a little bit about what I did. In my internship, I did a lot of work with children and youth affairs in Ireland and also with Brexit. One of my representatives was his constituency was on the border of Ireland and Northern Ireland, so he was doing a lot with cross relational cooperation between between the United Kingdom and Ireland. So that was really really cool to learn about. And then my other representative was doing a lot. She was her party's spokesperson on children and youth affairs, so she was doing a lot with that. So kind of what I did, some of the tasks included reading and summarizing legislation for my representatives. I did a lot of speech writing as well that they would give to their colleagues in the chamber, and I also did a lot of video upload video uploading of them, speaking in the chamber and putting it on like their Facebook or their social media accounts so their constituents could see it. So my internship, it was part of my program, like I said, and it accounted for 6 credits that all transferred back here to PC, along with the three credit courses that I took a few days a week on Monday and Wednesdays. And that's just a picture of me with my representatives. They treated me to a nice dinner on my last day of interning at the Parliament, which was really really nice of them, and we got that picture. Yeah, so just some benefits of my internship experience. I consider it my favorite part of my semester abroad. Uh, the reason I say so is because a lot of different reasons. It was great real world experience for me, um, for my political science major, and if I go to law school in a few years, which is what I'm hoping to do, is great, hands-on experience, with the law and doing different things, reading and writing and things of that nature. My knowledge of global political issues increased tremendously. Speaking about Brexit, I wrote one of my, and that leads me into the next point. I wrote one of my two final research papers for my courses on the implications of Brexit for Ireland, and I just not knowing anything about it before I went there was it was kind of daunting at first, but I learned so much, and I just kind of being like plopped into the situation, it really made me learn it very very well. Um, and then my other research paper that I wrote was for my Irish society class. So I did a lot with children and youth affairs, and that was my final paper for that one. My internship looks great on my resume. It actually helped me get my job this past summer, so it looks very very impressive. And I developed a personal relationship with my two representatives. I still talk to them to this day on Facebook and everything, which is kind of cool. Um, and just some final thoughts on my study abroad experience or my internship. Study abroad was the best thing I've ever done in my life. I can say that pretty much hands down. And the internship made that experience what it was. It made it the coolest experience of my life. Uh, and for the internship, for me, was my way of being culturally immersed in Ireland, because the classes that I took, and who I lived with was all other American college students. So I was in the classroom with them. I was living with them. But the way I experienced, the Irish people was in the Parliament, which is really really cool. Um, Despite having being in class a few days a week and then interning, I still had a lot of time to travel. I was able to go to, I think, 8 different countries during my semester. So just because you do an internship doesn't mean you have less free time. And I just highly recommend looking into a broad internship program if you're given the chance. So, thank you.
Hello. So my name's Kendall O'Neill. I went to Paris. Anyone thinking of going to Paris or like further study abroad or maybe visiting while they're studying abroad at all? Okay. Well, Paris, I loved it. It was an amazing place. So I am a senior accounting major, and I've always wanted to go to France forever. So I made sure that it would work. I was getting to France no matter what. So I chose the IES Business and International Affairs program. It was really great. I got to take some really cool business classes like International Political Economics, which sounds really daunting, but was really interesting. I got to take French politics, art, history, and architecture, which we never had in class. It was always throughout the entire city. It was an amazing course. So going to France, it was my first time out of the country, so I was really nervous. I don't really go outside of my comfort zone like ever, so this was like something new for me. So after like one mental breakdown and like getting over it and being like, yes, I really want to do this, I'm so excited, I just went. So packing was also a really big thing for me. I overpack a lot, and then after a lot of like eliminating, got it all into one suitcase. It's awesome. Also, going to France, I did have to get a visa. My advisor within the IES program helped me every step of the way, said by this date you need to do this, this, and that, and got it all done all in time. It's really helpful. So I did stay with the host family. That's my host mom. That's Laura. I stayed in the 15th arrondissement. So it was in a very residential area. I was 10 minutes away from school and 10 minutes away from the Eiffel Tower. It was really great. I could walk everywhere. She was really helpful. I kind of spoke French a little bit before going. She really helped me developing my language skills, being more comfortable, talking to people in stores, just random conversations with people that you might have. It was really great. And she helped me with essays and like making sure I was all grammatically correct before handing in my French essays, because that could have been really bad. So this was kind of like my neighborhood area. So you had a lot of cafes, really great food. If you guys ever go to Paris, just go to all these different cafes. They have really great food, guys. It was great. You could walk. They had all these different little stores, so not necessarily like a giant supermarket. You had your fish store, your flower store, your cake store, your meat stores, like all separate. It was awesome. I loved it. And it's a very walkable city, but it is very big, a lot bigger than you think it'll be. I am not very good with directions, but after about a week and a subway map, I was very able to get around the entire city really easily. My host mom and the people in the program helped me out with figuring out where I wanted to go, how to get to different places. And also one of the best things I loved about studying abroad was being able to travel. So I did go to Switzerland. I went to Geneva. Went to the UN, and that is Lake Geneva with the geyser going up. It was beautiful city. I was there for 3 days. Everyone is so nice there. Like everyone says, it's just really great place. I really recommend going to Switzerland. I went to visit my friend in England for a few days too. Great. And I also went to Strasbourg, which is in Alsace. It's like on the border of France and Germany for the Christmas markets. It was really great place. It's a very small city, and it was just a lot of fun just to go for the entire day and eat all these different cookies and hot wine. It was really nice. I really recommend going to Europe. It was great. It's really easy to travel around, and Paris was just amazing. I'm really happy I went.
Thank you. The students, I mean, you guys did a wonderful job of explaining what your semesters were like, and I'm sure people are going to have plenty of questions, but I just want to go through a little bit of what the next steps would look like. So if after all of this, your student is still thinking about studying abroad, you're probably wondering, okay, so what do you do next? Are there any sophomores in the room? Okay, just freshmen, got it. Just checking. Well, there is a sophomore. One. Okay, so the sophomore in the room should make sure that he comes in for an advising meeting this semester to talk about classes, to see which programs would be a good fit based on what the coursework is that he needs, what his interests are in terms of program location, whether or not an internship is going to be part of his study abroad experience. And then by December 1st of sophomore year, the application is due, and students will be finding out whether or not they've been admitted to their program. For the most part, during advising, we're able to help students select a program that they will be admitted to based on GPA and other factors. So there usually aren't any surprises after December 1st, just because we've been working with students on finding the right program for them. Freshmen, I would say the most important thing you can do now is to go to an information session if you haven't. These are 3 of our global ambassadors. We have about 20 students this year who offer info sessions just about on a weekly basis. And they also have tabling sessions where you can just stop in and talk to them. So we have a whole list. So if you know that you really want to go to Jordan or London, you can find a student who's going to be sitting at a table just ready to answer questions for you, and you can get advice about, what they liked about the program, what they'd recommend for traveling and packing and stuff like that. So at this point, I'd say, so start to do some research on the programs. If you haven't been to the Study Abroad Fair yet, you're going to want to do that next year. We hold it every September. Usually it's the last Monday in September, so you can mark your calendar. And then next year, you're going to want to come in for some advising. You can come in earlier than that if you want to, but most of the time people come in sophomore year for advising on study abroad. So our office is in Harkins Hall. It's right across from the president's office, if you know where that is, on the 2nd floor in room 215. And we actually have walk-in hours every Tuesday and Wednesday from 1 to 4, so you don't even need an appointment if you just want to stop in and chat a little bit about what you're thinking about for study abroad. So for now, I'm going to open it up for questions. Yes.
Sure. How many students do you have studying abroad each semester?
This year we had 360 students study abroad for a semester. We had a few more for fall than spring, but it's generally pretty balanced. So that actually brings up another thing about which semester you can go abroad. So we do kind of need to make sure that there's a roughly equivalent number of students studying abroad each semester, in part because when you're a junior, you're not going to want to move into freshman housing if that's all that's available. The only way we can really do that is to have a roughly equivalent number of students going fall semester and spring semester. But yeah, Providence College is actually nationally ranked for study abroad semester participation. So we're in the top 20 across the US in terms of the percentage of students that we send on semester study abroad. Thanks. Yes.
How do the students do their room selection when they're abroad for the following semester? And then the second question is, do their courses show up on their transcripts from study abroad?
Very good questions. Thank you. So students, before they go abroad, they usually pair up. I think the most common thing is for them to pair up with a student group who's going abroad the opposite semester. So if you have 5 people who are going abroad in fall, they find 5 people going abroad in spring, and they say, like, we're going to move into suites, and we're just going to swap out rooms at the end. There's other options too for students who don't want to do that. You can choose to be randomly placed into housing, but I think that's probably a less popular option. What did you guys do for housing?
So one of my friends in my Spanish class was going abroad in the fall, and I was going abroad in the spring. And she literally just sent me a Facebook message, "Hey, we have 4 girls going abroad in the fall. Do you want to switch rooms?" So then we just emailed Kevin Hillary, the head of the housing, told him like XYZ's moving in the spring, we're in here in the fall. Or I'm pretty sure you can get a list from him of students like in a room, and if you're going abroad at opposite semester, you can contact them.
Yes, I was in the 4-person apartments last year as well. I had my roommate. I went abroad in the spring, and then I switched with my roommate who was studying abroad in the fall, who did the PC in Rome program. So we just switched. It was pretty easy.
I was in one of the 6 people apartments. 3 girls from that apartment were going abroad in the spring, and 3 of us were coming back from the fall. So we just switched in one apartment. So 3 stayed the entire year, and then 3 of us just switched in and switched out.
Yeah, and then regarding the question about transcripts, yes, so when students are abroad, part of the homeschool tuition that I was talking about, where you continue to pay PC tuition while you're abroad, that's because you're still a PC student enrolled full-time as a PC student, and all of your grades will come back on your transcript just as if you took them on campus. So we think it's really important that students remain accountable for high academic standards while they're abroad. So just like on campus, they can take one class pass-fail as long as it's a free elective, but everything else is going to come back just as it would as a letter grade. So sometimes overseas they have different systems. They may not be using A through F, but we have an equivalency that they can use, that they can see in advance, so they know exactly how their grades are going to come back. Yes. Okay, so the question was, how do students choose housing while they're abroad? Will it be a homestay, an apartment, or a dorm? And the answer is, it depends on the student, and it depends on the program options that are available. So a couple of programs that we have are all homestay, because the point of the programs is language immersion, and that's really the best way to learn the language, is to be surrounded by it at all times. But that's a little bit less common. I think for the most part, I'd say the most popular option for students are apartments. And those are found by the program providers, so the students are not looking for their own housing, and the housing has been carefully vetted by these trusted third-party providers, and occasionally by visits from Providence College staff, to ensure that it's up to the safety standards that we have here, just like on campus. Does that answer your question? Thank you.
I wanted to ask each student how they found their particular program, if it was through the fair that you have, or is there places you can look online for what sort of programs are available?
So CIEE was my provider, and I specifically did the business and society program within that. So that's a full speaking Spanish business program, and I found that on the study abroad database we have, which classes I wanted to take. So I took 3 classes that counted for my Spanish major, and then I took international marketing abroad. So that I found 4 classes that directly transferred, but also I wanted to be in a program that was completely Spanish, but I could also use my marketing major.
Yeah, I looked at the study abroad database as well. My program was through Arcadia University, which is located in Pennsylvania, and I know it's strictly for study abroad students. And I knew I wanted to go to to either an English-speaking country, so either in Europe, so England or Ireland. Um, I thought London, so I was looking at London and Dublin, both had internship programs. I thought London was a little bit too big for me, and I wanted to have, a little bit more of a smaller city, so be in Dublin. Also, my ancestors are Irish, so I kind of wanted to just go there and experience Ireland. So that's how I chose my program.
Well, I knew I wanted to go to France. And so I looked at the database to see what business programs were available in France, and I saw the IES Business and International Affairs program in Paris. And then through the database, I could see what courses were available there that would convert to what I needed to take for my classes here. So I was able to take an economics course, a French politics course, a sociology, French, and art and architecture and history.
Yeah, so one of the things we do is we actually have a database on our website, anyone can view it, with all of the classes that Providence College students have taken, where they took them, and what specific requirement it fulfills. So sometimes for students who are juggling a major and a minor, or double major, it can be kind of hard to find all those courses that they need. And this database is actually a really great tool because it can help you to narrow down exactly what you'd be able to do in a different program. So if you're really unsure and you just, you know that you want to go somewhere Spanish speaking, you can kind of filter those out and then just look for Spanish speaking programs that also offer marketing classes. So the $1,000 study abroad fee, it does a number of things. It continues the students' enrollment while they're abroad. It allows them to enable to access their advisors, both their study abroad advisors, their major advisors, library resources, as well as periodic on-site evaluations of the program to ensure the academic and safety integrity of them. So yeah, that's the study abroad fee. I'd say, so each program is going to be different because some cities are really expensive places to live, and that's something that students would want to consider while they're picking their program. And sometimes it can be a little unexpected. Before working in the field, I didn't realize that Denmark was a really expensive place, or Australia. So those are some things that we talk about students with during advising. But I'd say, aside from the study abroad fee, the biggest differences in the costs are going to be airfare. Visas, if there is a visa, those can range from maybe $200 to $500 depending on the country. So that's a pretty big expense. And housing is often comparable, I find. There are some exceptions. London can be expensive and Sydney can be expensive. But I find that it's generally pretty similar to what Providence College housing is going to look like. Other than that, students do travel a lot while they're on study abroad, so the personal expenses can kind of add up, but that's really an individual decision. I don't know, maybe the students can tell me what they thought some of the biggest differences were with cost.
So Sevilla is actually very cheap. I would spend €1 on a coffee. But I know some of my friends in, like Grace said, London were spending a lot more than that. So basically, make a budget. One of my friends made an Excel sheet, tracked all of her finances. Personally, I didn't do that, but just to keep track, know your limit, know if you can go out to dinner tonight, should I cook in, stuff like that.
I would say two things. The first one being the visa. In Ireland, you don't need a visa to get into the country, but if you're there for an extended amount of time, you have to go to the Naturalization and Immigration Office. So I was there for 4 months, and I had to pay. I think it was like €300. So that was one, and then the other, I would just say, plane tickets. I would very, very highly recommend planning out your trips, in advance, and not, kind of, spur of the moment. Let me see how much these plane tickets are to this country because they're probably going to be expensive. So I'd say those two things.
So I did plan out a budget for every month. I'm like, I'm not going to spend over this amount. Paris is not too expensive, but it's not exactly cheap. So I just planned out what like when I can go out, but I did also have meals with my host mom, so like that helped with not having to buy groceries. I did have to buy some groceries, but not all the time. Also, with like what Ben said about traveling, I would definitely look at more buses and trains going out to different countries. They're cheaper, and you can plan them in advance. And definitely plan them in advance because the closer you are to the date, the more expensive all planes, trains, and automobiles cost.
So it sounded like when you did the Ireland trip, especially for the internship, that was a bonus for you in terms of getting a summer job, it sounded like.
Yeah.
So is there a difference in the program pools that you go to versus educational versus internship and educational? Or is it just happen to be the program that you pick?
Sure. So, yeah, so the program I was in, I didn't mention this before, but it was like a set, like it was already a set like course list along with the internship. So I was enrolled in 3 courses. Like I said, I was in Irish society and politics, Irish literature, and Irish history. And then I did the internship. I am not. I don't think any program is strictly an internship. I think it's class and then half and half. But that for my program, yeah, it was a few days a week was in the classroom, and then the other part was in the internship. And once I applied for the program, I got a question about this at one of the info sessions I did the other day. I didn't have to like apply to the internship like in Ireland. It was like through the program, and once I got accepted, yeah, it was all squared away.
Yeah, so students who do internships while they're abroad, they generally take a 3 or 6 credit internship course that accompanies the internship. But other than that, they'd be taking 3 to 4 other classes. So, like a history class, a literature class, something like that. We don't have students go and do a full-time internship for the whole semester just because they'd be behind on their degree progress. So it's always a part-time internship.
Hi. So I'm looking into double majoring marketing and English. I know you majored in marketing and minored in Spanish. How feasible would it be, like with the large course load of marketing to double major, or should I like knock it to a minor in order to study abroad?
So I decided to major in Spanish as I was looking at study abroad programs because my advisor was like, if you're going to go to a Spanish speaking country, you might as well, when you get home, you're going to only have to take 2 more Spanish classes. I thought it was very manageable, and also in the study abroad office, there was a database that one of the girls in there helped me look at. So there was a girl who studied abroad. This is when I was a sophomore. So she had studied abroad in Seville, did the same exact program as me, and was a marketing and Spanish major. So I was able to look at how she did it, and that basically guided me. But also, I sent syllabuses to the study abroad office to show them, oh, this counts for XYZ class.
Any final questions? Oh, yes. Okay, so the question is what kind of discussion takes place before students depart regarding safety? So that is really important. We host a pretty lengthy pre-departure orientation the semester before students leave, and it's required. So when that takes place, some of the important things that we emphasize are employing common sense strategies to stay safe, just like you would here, because most of the things that happen to students when they're abroad are things like pickpocketing, that could sort of be avoided if they were taking certain precautions about how to carry their bag, using a bag with a zipper and things like that. But we do also touch on what are the if there's a terrorist event in Europe, what is the protocol going to be? And because we work, every single student in Europe is with a third-party program provider, we know what those safety responses are. So most programs require that students carry a cell phone, and they're going to get a push notification if anything happens, and it will say, are you okay? Yes or no. the student clicks yes. In a lot of situations now, the providers are using something where if a student would click no, the GPS location would be sent back to them so that they could start to develop a plan. So we're seeing technology definitely making it easier to stay in touch with students and to make sure that that they're feeling safe and accounted for if something was to happen. So we actually don't have students check in with our office when something happens because we want them to do just one thing, and that's just respond to their program provider, because then the provider is going to respond to us, and when all of our students are accounted for, they're going to say, everyone who's in London right now has been accounted for. And so, you know, we just don't want them doing too many different things, so they just respond to the program provider. You know, we also talk about things like drinking, because unfortunately that's something that's going to make students at greater risk for being a target for crime while they're abroad, is, you know, not being able to kind of have their wits about them and not making smart decisions. So, you know, the drinking age in Europe is usually 18 in most countries. So students who may not be able to drink here are sometimes able to drink overseas. And we want to make sure that they're being as responsible as possible and always using the buddy system. We make it really clear that we don't want students out by themselves after dark in any situation. They always need to be with a group. So I do think that, you know, and the students are able to hear from other students, which I think goes a long way. When a student like one of these three tells another student what they did to stay safe while they were abroad, I think it means a lot. So these guys are going to be helping me out with pre-departure next month. And yeah, I think basically just sticking to the same common sense that they use when they're in Providence, a lot of that is going to go a long way.
I'm sorry. So when the students are traveling, do they have to check in? If they're traveling to other cities, do you have to check in?
It
to let
depends on the program provider. I think almost all of them now are asking students. They send an email Thursday or Friday that says, "Are you going anywhere this weekend?" And they just need to write back and say, "Yeah, I'm going to be in Paris these days." That'll help them to keep track of students if something goes
Or
awry.
have to have an itinerary of like, this is, you know,
I don't
where I'm
think
going to
so.
be
Do you guys-
going on this day.
My form was due the Thursday before every weekend. So most travel was Friday to Sunday because we didn't have class on Fridays. It was the specifics were, are you going with anyone from this program, like the address of your Airbnb, stuff like that.
Any other questions? All right, well, thank you all for coming today.